Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? Well, it's Cinco de Mayo, so I hope if you're going to celebrate Cinco de Mayo, you have a wonderful time doing it, but please be safe. Also, what a lot of holidays coming up or celebrations because Mother's Day is Sunday. And I am so excited because I have Angelica Neri with me, and Angelica is a divine feminine healer. I felt that for Mother's Day, it would be great to delve into what is feminine energy, what is goddess energy or the divine mother energy, how it works in our life, how we've been programmed to not be in our feminine and to really be into the masculine, and where the balance is so important for having wonderful, positive, and joyful flow in your life. So, Angela, welcome to the show. Angelica, I'm sorry. Welcome to the show. I apologize for that. So let's talk about your background because it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, thank you, Marla, for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics. So I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, and Ayurveda is the Eastern medicine and Eastern medical system of India. I'm also 500-hour Kundalini meditation instructor and a Reiki master. So I love infusing all this ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, yoga, and Reiki as one to heal the mind, the body, and the spirit. And specifically, I like to teach the divine feminine form of these ancient sciences because a lot of times they're taught in this masculine, rigid structure. And truly, I believe that we have the power to heal. And especially as women, which is my specialty, is I help heal women with female reproductive imbalances. Part of that is really starting to understand your own intuition and awaken to it, which is what I believe is the divine feminine way.
And you also have a school or an academy you started?
Yes. So I started the Divine Feminine Healers Academy so that it's a self-healing program that also certifies women to become Ayurvedic health coaches and Reiki masters. And again, I teach my method is the divine feminine form.
I love it. We can't have enough academies like that. Mm-hmm. It's so important. So let's talk about divine feminine. What is it?
So we all have a feminine and masculine energy within us that is not gender-based. It just is what it is. And this feminine energy is shown through our ability to receive, our ability to tap into our sensuality, our ability to have experienced joy, to be in the flow of life, and most importantly, to trust our intuition. I find that this is the most fundamental piece of it all, that we always are told in our society to outsource our wisdom from other things, from media, and truly it's about coming back to we have all the wisdom within us. Our body sends us so much wisdom. Our emotions send us so much wisdom. And when we're able to unblock all these conditionings that we have, we can get super clear on that intuition and it ends up guiding our whole life. What foods we can eat, what lifestyle practices we can have, and also those spiritual messages of how can I align with my soul's purpose. So it's a part of us, and we already have these inklings. Everyone is already embodying the divine feminine energy to a certain extent. However, we can definitely be blocked in certain ways.
So let's talk about the blocks. Where are we blocked? How do we get blocked? Let's start that way first.
Yeah, so I see this a lot with women cutting off their ability to receive. And I actually just posted about this, that usually women come to me when they're already burnt out and they have a chronic condition. However, the signs were way before. The signs were you're unable to receive. So maybe that's a compliment, saying thank you after a compliment, or even a gift saying, oh, no, like, no, thank you. Like cutting yourself off in that ability to receive, to really own this worthiness that you have. And I also see this as women just trying to work in more of a masculine manner, trying to fit themselves into this rigid structure of our society, of maybe it's working a 9-to-5 job and that feels like it's going against the flow of your energy. So as women, we have our own rhythms Alyssa Ritchie calls this in her book, The Infradian Rhythm, where we align with the moon, the cycles of the moon. And the moon is related to feminine energy the most, and it's also related to our mind or emotions. So those who are female identifying tend to really identify with the moon because of this, because we mirror the cycles of the moon. When it wanes and when it waxes, we too wane and wax. So without us aligning to that rhythm, we can get out of balance. We can get physical imbalances. We can have emotional turmoil. We can feel out of touch with our spirituality. So really the wounded feminine there's a lot of these things that are in there. It's an inability to receive. You can have burnout. And it also can lead to codependent tendencies. So a lot of times I also see this as women getting so enmeshed in relationships that they don't even know what their needs and wants are. They're completely living for other people. They're giving more than they're receiving. They're constantly giving away their energy to other people. And sometimes this looks like taking on other people's emotions, taking responsibility for the loved ones in your life. And if you're a healer, sometimes this can be taking on responsibility of the success of your clients. And that heaviness is blocking you off from your ability to receive more, because your container can only take so much. So not only are you trying to heal your own wounds, but you're trying to heal everyone else's. And that is where I see the blockages the most.
And so is there one particular theme that you find happens in the majority of your clients or the people you work with, where there's one that really that's the top number one issue that, these people come to you holding on to or believing?
Yeah, I'm going to have to say the giving more than receiving. It's like, as healers too, because I work with a lot of healers that want to step into this role, that want to give to the world. They know so well how to give more than anything. They can give gifts, they can give services, whatever their acts of love are. They're just giving away their energy like it's like nothing. Just you get a free,
like it's cotton candy. Here you go, have some.
Exactly. And they really don't know how to receive. So this is the law of nature of giving and receiving. That's it. Nature teaches us that. So if we're not in alignment with that, nature is going to show us right away. It'll show us through emotional turmoil. It'll show us through our body experiencing physical imbalances. So that's actually not a bad thing when your body is speaking to you. It's amazing that you have the awareness that your body is, because most of the time people are just sleeping and don't even recognize it. So once you have that body awareness, it's okay. How can I realign with nature? And that's really what these old ancient sciences say, is that if I can truly be in harmony with myself when I align with nature. So notice, if you're listening to this, are you giving more than you're receiving? One of my favorite exercises to do is just to make a T-chart. What drains my energy? What fills my energy up? And just really observe over a week, because sometimes it can be surprising what drains your energy. So, when I was in a codependent relationship, I didn't realize why this person, every single time I was hanging out with them, I felt drained after. I blame myself, which a lot of women do. They take responsibility for everything and they blame themselves for everything. And really what I didn't realize is that I was giving more in this relationship and that was draining me. So just that observational assessment of what is really feeding my energy and not already just gives you that awareness. And then you can start to build boundaries along the things that are not fueling your energy. Start the low-hanging fruit, because the stuff that feels really difficult is going to be harder to obviously start to implement. And then just start to slowly incorporate more of the things that fuel your energy, that lift you up. The community that starts to lift you up, like-minded people, the environment. Maybe you're not living in a location where there are like-minded people for you to meet, where it's going to be the optimal environment for your body to heal. So all these things can factor in.
It's so important. And there are ways that we can, exercises and ways that we can awaken the feminine in us. Would you agree? I mean, I'm talking about like the self-love and appreciation. Yes. Boundaries are so important for self-love and appreciation and acceptance and appreciation.
Definitely.
A deeper connection with your body and sensuality, because a lot of women, we're as humans, and the different cultures have always been run by men, and they're the ones who have sort of outlined, the way we are going to, as women, that we're going to handle things, deal with things. Right. We've been so repressed.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I see that as a lot of sexual trauma that women endure, and they hold that a lot. I very much live by the chakra system. So, when we talk about the divine feminine energy, we're a lot talking about the sacral chakra that lives in the womb. This is where our intuition lives, and this is also where our sexual and our sensual power is. And a lot of times, women from their past experiences have trauma here. If that is what sexual energy is, then I want no part of that, and they block themselves off from it. And that is an energy in itself that goes way, it is that ability to experience pleasure and enjoyment, but also that ability of merging your divine feminine and masculine energies together and total union. So it is so important to be balanced in it. It's not everything. It's not something that we only focus on, but it is what brings harmony to our feminine energy. Is it's healthy to have that kind of sexual power. And, religious trauma can fit in this bucket too. If we feel like we've been conditioned to think that it's bad to have these feelings, it's bad to give ourselves pleasure and have this type of enjoyment.
And it's true. Many religions do sort of preach about not touching not touching yourself. Now, that it's, God forbid, it's a horrible thing to get to know your body and what works for it and what brings it pleasure and what brings distaste or dislike to what you want to bring into your sexual encounters.
Yeah. And you brought up a great point that it really comes down to the first step is understanding what your needs and wants are. So as women, it's like, well, you may even think that your needs and wants are your partners because that's how enmeshed you are in the relationship, but it's really building that boundary. And the first step is just getting clear on what do I want and what I need. So in situations when you want to receive pleasure, you can get to know yourself and say, what do I want and what I need to feel fulfilled, to feel nourished, because that's a birthright that we are all meant to have.
I so agree with that. I was a boy mom. And what was interesting is that I adopted my first husband's children. And what was really interesting is that my husband at the time was like, you don't touch yourself, you don't explore yourself. He even made a statement to me that if I find them masturbating, I'm going to cut off their hands, kind of an attitude.
Yeah.
And now this is the feminine in males, which I know we're not necessarily talking about, but it's a part of the male life as well, the male energy system.
Definitely.
And my feeling was, and I told him straight out, I said, go explore your bodies before you let anybody else do it. That way you know what you need, what you like, what you want. Yeah.
And that's such a good point to bring up about healing the divine feminine, not just in women, but in males too. I find that is like, if we're getting at the heart of all these social issues that are coming up, it truly is that men need to be that it's okay to get in touch with their feminine energy, like instances where they were told that it's not okay to masturbate and shame for that. Already there's shame for pleasure and enjoyment in that feminine energy, then they're denying it. But also the most obvious one is shame for feeling their emotions. Oh, he's too sensitive. Oh, he's too this. And then it gets repressed, and now we're seeing it blown up in all these different ways. That's just more toxic to our world.
Let's talk about Vladimir Putin for a second. You think he's a little blocked with his feminine? I'm sorry. Every chance I get, I have to bring it up because this this soul is so wounded.
Yeah.
When it comes out in how he is handling all of these issues that he's handling.
Totally.
I would venture a guess that he's got such a wall around his heart that he doesn't feel.
Yeah, exactly. The numbing. And that's a cycle of it where it's first we deny what our needs and wants, we give more than we receive. And then we're starting to live for that other person. We're feeling depleted. We have a chronic condition. We don't want to feel it. So we numb. We numb the emotions with whatever vice that you have because it's too painful. And then, over time that can develop as narcissistic tendencies where we're seeing these huge ego people just create these monsters in the world.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly.
That's the reality. It just doesn't have to. We don't have to live like that. So let's talk about some of the other issues surrounding it, like healing the divine feminine. Would you agree that examining your wounds surrounding your femininity is one, where if you're a male, your feminine energy, your feminine side is a huge one? Because people don't even get introspective as to what it is.
Totally. I think the main thing is really looking at your emotions. Those are like the window, I call them like the keys of opportunities to transforming your greatest obstacles into your greatest opportunities. So look to see where you're triggered. And that's really insightful. The grief, the shame, the resentment, the anger are all intelligent emotions. They're meant to live in your body. And it's not that necessarily we can ever really release and never feel that emotion again. We may release that emotion from that situation. But if it's a karmic tie, we're going to have to continuously start to heal and bring awareness to it. Oh, okay, this is the story coming up again. I know this very well, and this is how I know how to heal it. And it's just making right relationship with it. And honestly, a huge emotion that I think is denied is our grief here. And this is really tied to feminine energy, because in the waxing and the waning cycle of the moon, when the moon wanes, there's a grief period where we lose the light. And the same thing when we have our menstrual cycle as women, is that we lose, the egg does not fertilize, and we shed our uterine lining. And that is a grief that we go through each month. So there's an ego identity that gets shed or needs to shed and doesn't get shed, that is so important for creating space here. So it's really important to, of course, there's so much grief around losing people that we're really close to because we have an identity with them, and that needs a lot of tending to and takes a long time to tend to. But it's also grieving these past identities that we've held on to. I am not the same person I was yesterday or a couple of days before, and that's because the moon moves every 2.5 days. So it's super important that we honor that you honor that you're not the same person, but that you take time and doing a grief ritual that I love that person of myself and all the lessons that I learned. And now I'm ready to release her and move on to this new identity so that you can create space. Everyone wants to manifest and everyone wants their dreams to become a reality, but it literally just doesn't have the space because the channels are clogged with these emotional wounds that we're holding on to. And we're just piling them on and then taking them with us to the next part of our life. And then minimal amount of joy and pleasure can be experienced.
Do you have an initial kind of exercise that you could share with our audience on a way that they can start to unblock this block?
Yeah, I think the best thing is just to be aware of your emotions in the first place, because especially if you feel like you're really wounded in your feminine, you're probably at the point where you are avoiding. So you can numb emotions so easily. Honestly, yes, with our vices like alcohol and substances, but honestly, you can numb your emotions by simply just saying, I'm not going to feel this, and think about something different. It can happen so subtly. So I love a journal practice, because expressing these emotions, like actually putting it down into something tangible, is so important for the release process. So just journaling either every morning or every night, what emotions that you felt. It's really important just to look back at your day and take inventory on the spectrum of emotions, because a lot of times in that moment, it wasn't deemed in society that you were okay to feel that emotion. Maybe you wanted to start bawling, crying in that meeting, but that was not what you didn't feel comfortable or safe to do that. And that's understandable. However, that emotion needs to be released. So going home that night, journaling on that story, what feelings came up, just letting your emotions pour out on the paper is so important. And if you're really not a writer, it's really just making art of it. So some of us may want to draw pictures. Some of us may want to talk out loud, go on walks in nature, somewhere where you're alone, and just speak it out. But it needs to be put into something tangible. And that's why I love creating art, and why that is also gets in touch with the feminine energy, but it really helps us to express this into emotional and release these emotions.
Well, first of all, I'm going to address when you say you repress it. I call it the Scarlett O'Hara, syndrome, because she would always say, "As God is my witness, I'll worry about this tomorrow," or whatever she would say in the middle of Gone with the Wind. And I remember that affected me. I saw that when I was like 16 years old, and it was like, oh my God, okay. And then I started repressing and just shoving everything down, because in that movie, it just seemed like the right thing to do. If this strong woman can do it, I could do it. And it bites you in the butt.
Yeah.
It truly, truly does. And then when you're talking, the other thing on exercise, or instead, if you don't want to write in a journal, you can bullet point your emotions as well.
Definitely.
And because if you are not accustomed to really getting to feeling, at least you can write them down and then get an idea of what these emotions are that keep looping and holding you from moving forward.
Right. And a lot of times we may not even know what that feeling is. And just to get curious and just write down the characteristics of how that made you feel. I feel frustrated. Even if it feels, it's like, well, this is a different emotion, but I'm still thinking that it's frustrated. Oftentimes we don't have the language for it, and that's okay too. Just continuously get curious and just emote, like let yourself just feel into whatever you're experiencing. And I just started, or I just finished the book Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, and she
Yes.
identifies, I think, like 87 emotions or something. It was a really great, honestly, it's a hard book as like an empath. I'm sure you can relate. Like I felt like I was really feeling the emotions as she was talking through them, but it was such a great insight into what are these emotions and how we can identify them.
And you're right. There's so many emotions we don't even know how to verbalize, how to, to share them with. It's like being a baby.
Totally.
So I'm a new Gigi, and in that, the baby's 10 weeks old. The baby can't tell you what it wants, and it's the same thing if you don't. So you have to figure out a way to communicate it to yourself, I feel.
Definitely.
And honor and give yourself the space and grace.
Exactly.
To figure it out.
Right. Because if you don't know it yourself, then this is why it lives in the sacral chakra, because it's the first building the relationship with yourself is so important before we're able to really build nourishing relationships with other people. Because if you don't know what you want, how's your partner or how is your friend supposed to know what you want? So I often see this sacral chakra related to the throat chakra because women don't even know what they want. So then they can't even express what they want, what they need to the world. And healers, this is important for you too, because if you don't know what your intuitive powers are, what your gifts are, you're not going to be able to share your light and express your gifts with the world. So this connection between knowing what we want, trusting our intuition, and then being able to safely express it is just, it's everything for women.
It is. And, if I'm trying to think, nope, that doesn't work. Okay. I'm going to forget that. But building that self is so important. And as children, our authority figures, our parents, relatives, grandparents, they all try to project their beliefs on you, not realizing, and I really truly believe they don't truly realize that they're stunting your energetic growth, emotional growth, and really putting a repression system in place for you.
Definitely. Yeah. So it's just getting curious too about like, what are those systems that I've been following? Because sometimes we're just so caught in the illusion that we don't even realize that what is my flow, and giving ourselves permission. I remember I love this exercise too, to give. One of my first Ayurvedic teachers gave me when I was very structured, like in a masculine, like go power in my career and burning out. And she said, well, why don't you just take a half day for yourself? And on this half day, or first she said a full day for yourself, and just do whatever you want. Like, just let your intuition lead you. Do it. Wake up in the morning. Don't have an agenda, because I had so much to do on my to-do list always. Like, if I didn't follow the plan, I wouldn't have gotten it through. She's like, no agenda. You just do what you want to do in that moment. And I was like, first of all, I don't have a day. She's like, okay, take a half day. And then it just felt so foreign to me. And then it ended up being one of my favorite days. It was Fridays. And it just now is stuck with me that like Friday is associated with the planet Venus, which is very divine feminine energy and beauty and sensuality and pleasure and enjoyment. And it really got me into this flow of, on Fridays, that is what I do. I don't have an agenda. I just, whatever I'm feeling in that moment of how I can give back to myself that pleasure and that enjoyment. And it's so personal to everyone. I mean, for me, I really connect to a lot of Venus energy. It's very much rules my chart. So I love food. I love self-care. I love getting my nails done. I love massages. I love any form of touch and beauty, and dressing super well that day that like expresses my personality. So there's so many different ways that you can do that.
And getting into nature. Nature is so important with the feminine energy because Gaia, Mother Nature, they don't call it Father Nature, they call it Mother Nature. So there's a reason for it. So, have those walks outside. When you're outside, breathe in to the best of your ability, because some places have cleaner air than others. So they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to take a deep breath of this." But whether you do or not, it's your lifeline. Without breath, you're not here. You're truly not here. So, how do you embody goddess energy, and is that different from feminine energy?
I That's so interesting. So, in Vedic wisdom, the reason why, and often Vedic wisdom is often associated with Hinduism, but they're different because Vedic wisdom comes from spirituality. You don't have to have a religion. Hinduism was derived from that, but oftentimes we associate that with all these gods and goddesses, and they call them deities that they have. And there's so many beautiful ones like Kali and Saraswati and Lakshmi, and so what's different about this, that when I learned that I love that was different from Catholicism or Christianity, is that this God is not outside of me. This God is not something that's on a high pedestal, but it's something that I can never reach. But this goddess is within me. So we have these goddesses that all live within us. And some of us are born with this blueprint, which has to do with like our astrology chart and our energies that we came into. We're born with a blueprint of certain deities or devas that are within us. So we have this unique goddess energy. All of us do. And it's just about, and sometimes, that goddess is with us during a certain time of our life. For example, if we're trying to get over a huge fear in our life, or there's a huge ending and a new beginning in our life, which a lot of us are going through right now because there are so many planetary changes in the last month that you're probably experiencing that. So Mother Kali is a great goddess to call upon because she is the goddess of destruction, but she is fierce. Like she's holding a machete in one hand and in the other hand, a decapitated head with like blood dripping down her mouth. Like so much, you may think that that's masculine energy, but the feminine energy can also be fierce. It can also have strong boundaries and say, I am not willing to accept this situation anymore. I'm ending this. And now this is what I'm willing to accept from here on out. So that is an amazing goddess to call upon for endings and beginnings. And then Goddess Lakshmi is the goddess of health and prosperity and abundance. And so if we're feeling like we're in this scarcity mindset of, oh, I'm never going to be able to have this amount of money. I'm never going to be able to have this career, or feeling like jealous of other people. Jealousy is a scarcity mindset because you're thinking that if that person has it, that means that I can't. When really nature is abundant. And so therefore nature is a reflection of everything that we have in this world, which means that it can be at our fingertips if we so please. So Lakshmi helps us to get into that abundant mindset of everything is available to me in infinite forms. And I'm so grateful for everything that I have in my life. And that gratitude is going to give me back tenfold of everything else that I want to manifest into my world.
It's so true. I love Lakshmi and what she does, and the story between Ganesh and Lakshmi, and it's just such a beautiful story.
Definitely.
So let's go into divine mother energy. Is that just a more mature feminine energy?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that mothers can be seen in a lot of different forms. So there's the mother in the most obvious form that births a child into this world. And that is feminine energy, because feminine energy is creation. Yes. Anything that we're creating in this world. So very much creative energy when you have a child. You're birthing a whole new life into this world. And I also want to honor the mothers who birth other creations in this world, like new projects or new ideas and artists. And, even if you don't consider yourself an artist, we are creative beings. You're constantly creating new things. So if you put all of your energy, maybe you're a teacher, and maybe your creation is what you're educating to the world. So there's a lot of different ways that we can tap into our maternal energy. And I think that it would be more narrow-minded to think that it can only be taught in one way. I do think that the maternal energy that in mothers is so intelligent and beautiful, and it is just a force to be reckoned with, that how that comes online while the mother is pregnant, how her hormones start to come online, and she has that intuitive instinct that comes on a wholly different level. I just recently had a friend who had a baby, and I grew up with her, and it's just so wild seeing her maternal instincts turn on, and how she knows, and how she protects, and how she knows how to care and to nourish. And let me tell you, she was not thinking that was going to happen to her. She was scared, like, can I really do this? And it's funny, looking at your friends when they were younger and like now stepping into this role, it's like, she is a mother. She is just so nurturing. And then that role. And I think that all women can tap into that maternal birthing a new creative life into form in so many different ways.
And that's what an entrepreneur does. They while they're building their business, their practice, whatever it might be, that's your pregnant stage. When you launch it, that's your birthing stage. And then you just need to keep nurturing it and feeding it and being there during all of its challenges, as most businesses do have one or two here or there. And it's just another form of feminine energy, but it's never expressed that way.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's a lot of shame around, if a woman doesn't have babies or doesn't want that. And I think that maybe people are starting to become more awakened to it, that there's other alternatives, that, not every woman is made for that. I mean, when you look at Dharma, which is your life's purpose, that's just how it is, like everyone has their own life purpose. And for most women, that could not be just having a child.
It's so true. And here's the thing, you can also be the mother and share for somebody else's child. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to have you could be a quote unquote mother figure rather than an actual mother, but you're still nurturing, you're still guiding.
Exactly.
The individual, whether it be a male or female child, even if you're guiding another adult,
right?
It's still being feminine, working with the feminine energy.
Definitely. I mean, epigenetics says that, we basically are a product of our environment. So whether that kid is in a new environment, the birth mother has impact, but that environment is everything. That becomes the nurturing. That becomes how that child comes into their own and their habits and their behaviors and their attitudes. So the same thing happens. Yeah. If you were to have your own cohort and you're nurturing your own students, you get to create what kind of culture they come alive in. You get to create what they start to learn and the behaviors and traits that they start to take on too.
I love that. And because the reality of it is we learn as well as teach. We're not just teachers, we're students. And they're not just students, they're also teachers. And it's, I think it's very empowering to realize that you're also a teacher, because you're teaching people how to deal with their issues, because you're reflecting it to them through the actions, thoughts, words that are being conveyed.
Definitely.
And speaking of words being conveyed, speaking your truth, that's huge for feminine energy, stepping into your power.
Definitely.
And let's talk a little bit about how people, boys learn that it's okay to be loud and aggressive, but girls are taught to, just be quiet and be pretty, or to be, to be there to service another being.
Yeah. Oh, that ruffles my feathers when I hear that, but in a good way, that triggers a light in me, because again, I see this connection between the throat chakra, right? It gets blocked off. And yeah, this is one of my biggest grievances that I see amongst women, as being afraid to speak up. And I, can see this with men using their anger improperly. Yes, anger is intelligent and you need to express in a certain way, but using it as a fear base to make women afraid to speak up is a huge issue. And also women belittled, that if they don't make enough money as the male, or that their gifts are seen as esoteric and maybe not as valued as a man's, maybe because of how much income that they bring in. And then they shut their voice off. They shut off what their gifts are to the world, and they shut off how they can really express themselves. And that is honestly the hugest disservice, not only that you do for yourself, but to the world. So in Vedic wisdom, we call Dharma is moving towards your soul's purpose. That is evolution. And then adharma is the opposite. You're moving away from it. It is adharmic to believe in that lie that your gifts are not worthy to be shared to the world. And then also that your gifts are not worthy enough to receive just as much, if not more, financial income than anyone else's. And that is just I think that is another big crux of why the divine feminine is wanting to reemerge right now, is because we are missing that intuitive wisdom into our world. That it's not our world can live like this based on this only one-sided masculine structure, a wounded masculine structure at that, that we need to get back to our intuition, get back to knowing that our psychic abilities and allowing that to come through and allowing that to guide our life. Because this old way is not working. So
It's not
the way
working.
that we not only just speak, but it's also expressing in all these different ways. Whatever your gifts are, they need to be expressed.
I so agree with that. And when you mentioned something, and now that really ruffled my feathers, because it's sort of like these people who are trying to take over people's countries or cities or whatever, and the women get violated. Why are they not violating men the way they violate women? I mean, that irks me, because, if you're going to abuse, because you have this hate in your heart, why are you not abusing across the line? Why is it the female gender?
Exactly, because they're afraid of the power. They're afraid of the divine feminine rising, because I think it's, again, that scarcity mindset that if that person rises, then I can't. And it's that fear, when it's really, no, when we all rise together. And that is like the huge lesson I feel that we have in this earth.
I really love that we all rise together. And then we talked about figuring out things on a soul level, how important that is. And there are ways you can do that, about being rather than doing, and stop achieving. Let's talk about trusting your intuition, how women, I know we've touched upon it through many of these conversations. We shut down our intuition, we shut down our knowledge base. And it's so important to allow that trust in what information you're getting, because it never steers you wrong. Just like mothers know when their children are in trouble. It's just an intuit.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's so much here. And I mean, I have this is what my whole academy is about, that we teach in this 6 months. So I'm just barely scratching the surface here, but it truly starts by first listening to your body's messages. How does my body feel? What is my body trying to tell me? So a lot of times women will come to me and they'll have like a full-blown female reproductive imbalance, like PCOS, amenorrhea, endometriosis, or a chronic condition, digestive issues, and stress. That is intelligent information that's telling you to trust what your body is saying, because that is pointing you in the direction to healing, pointing you in the direction of how to go from suffering to feeling amazing in your body. So first, listening to your body's messages is huge. And then also listening to your emotions, like we said with that journaling exercise, of being able to emote. And the more that you begin to build that confidence with your body, then your body's like, okay, we're in this together. And your emotions like, okay, like I can be felt and trusted. You build that confidence within yourself, and that voice that was within you, although the voice of our soul is kind of like a whisper, when the more that you listen to it, it gets strong. It's firm, it's resilient, and it's got this feminine nature to it. It's very empowering. That voice within you is never going to shame you, guilt you, bring you into any fear. The voice within you is just, it's firm, it's trusting, and you know it. It's like, you can't deny it. Once you hear it, it's like, that's it.
And if you do deny it, your intuition, your energy, it has a way of shaking you till you finally say, oh, that's a message for me. Let's deal with that.
Yeah, nature will respond. If you don't listen to your intuition, that's a gift. Even though we don't see it as a gift when we get a challenge and an obstacle, it is a gift, because it's redirecting you that, no, this wasn't what your intuition was saying you. And it's trial and error. That's what our human experience is. I throw myself right into the fire sometimes, even though I knew kind of deep down that voice was, but the ego took over. That's okay. What we do is we get better at deciphering between the ego mind and the soul to get to know that voice more. And I love doing this with ancient wisdom, with Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a beautiful science to come back to your body, to trust that wisdom and know what diet and lifestyle practices. I also love doing this with Reiki, because Reiki awakens your psychic abilities. So things like seeing beyond this physical realm and things like feeling beyond this physical realm, these abilities start to come online so that you can start to feel this extra sensory world, and that gives you insight. So for example, like if you're in a room and you're like, something's off here. Well, if that was an interview for a new job and you see that the culture of that community is not going to be fostering your growth, then you know, okay, that wasn't the right job for me. That was intuitive knowledge that if that was stifled or if that gift didn't come online, that you might have, gone right into the fire with that job and then left in a really toxic environment.
It's so true. I'm listening to you and things just keep rolling in my mind about all of this. I want to talk about slowing down. Women are just so programmed. Well, we as humans are programmed to do and accomplish and conquer, but how to really sort of step into your divine feminine, slowing yourself down, like you said, giving yourself some grace, giving yourself a practice or something that will allow you to just slow your roll, so to speak.
So I think this can be difficult for women who are high strung, who have been living like this for a very long time. For you to tell them just to go and meditate for 20 minutes a day can feel difficult.
Yes.
So that the first is truly understanding the why behind it. It's very much, I feel, how women really who is relate to that type of energy need to know why. And the reason is we usually don't feel like we're worthy to take rest. We don't feel that our rest is even productive. So the first time you're meditating, you're like, this is stupid. I don't understand what this is doing. It's not giving me any benefits other than feeling like I could have gotten at least 5 things done off my to-do list. And now I'm set back. So it really is rewiring your brain to know that in your rest is your productivity. It's one of my favorite affirmations. My rest is productive. Because again, we are a reflection of nature, which means we are a reflection of the cycles of the moon. And we do not just align with the circadian rhythm of the sun goes up and the sun comes down. Men only align with that rhythm. And we do too, to a certain extent. But we also align with the rhythms of the moon cycle. So yes, the moon starts to build her light, and then the moon is so full and lustrous. And that is when we have all of our energy. We feel like we can take on the world. It's great to crush our to-do list during that time of the month. But as the moon begins to shed her light, we too begin to dwindle our energy. Our hormones begin to dwindle, and we begin to shed that uterine lining. And so we don't have as much energy. Now, instead of thinking that this is a defeat, like, oh, I could have accomplished more, you're going to accomplish so much more when you go inward during this time. Because truly, if we don't have any PMS symptoms, or if we're not, even if you don't have your period anymore, you can still align with the cycles of the moon and know that your energy levels will still start to change with that fluctuation, with the waning and the waxing. So it's important that we go inward during that time, because we're actually the most intuitive on the new moon. If you are aligned with the moon cycles, you will get that wisdom. And that is so important, because way back when, in ancient times, when the divine feminine was in her fullness, actually, like females were in power before the Roman Empire took over, and then that changed it to being more of the sun and the masculine energy taking over. Women, when they would get their period, they would go into tents, and they put all the women together because they'd have all this powerful Shakti feminine energy. And they would get these intuitive downloads that would give them guidance on how they were going to run the whole community for that next cycle of the moon. How important was that to know, how am I going to set my intention for this next month? Well, you get that guidance in that window in the new moon. So if you are pedal to the metal and still crushing your to-do list during that time, you're not going to get those intuitive messages. You're denying your feminine energy. You're denying your ability to receive more abundance. You're denying your ability to experience pleasure and joy. So we need that rest. So my favorite thing to do is, whatever rest means to you, whatever feels like a rest is going to be completely different. Now I've worked my way up that a 30-minute meditation is a non-negotiable for me on a daily basis. And now when it's my new moon, I like to do a meditation at night as well. However, we can do this in a lot of different ways. Going out in nature, even if it's just a 15-minute break in your workday, is huge. It helps to reset your mind, and there's so many benefits in nature. I don't even need to go on about it. Another break is just to yoga nidra is something that I love. So it's also known as yoga sleep, and it basically takes you through a guided meditation to calm your nervous system and relax you. So especially if you're having difficulty sleeping, this can be really helpful for you, because oftentimes women who have the wounded feminine have difficulty sleeping because they work these long hours and then all of a sudden they just go straight to sleep. and their body is still wired because they're still in that mindset of I'm working. So Yoga Nidra helps you to relax the nervous system and detach from your workday so that you can have a proper sleep. So Yoga Nidra is great, nature, and also like it could be as simple as just finding like a moment of breath in between things. Like, when do we really take a breath? Notice yourself. Like, are you constantly washing the dishes and then making dinner and then cleaning up and doing one thing to the next? When are you just taking a break to breathe in the present moment? And it could be so simple. It's just right before you're about to begin something.
I agree. But one thing I love to do is I love to take a deep soak. That's a great way to honor yourself and pull a lot of elements in, while, taking that downtime, that slowing down time, and you're honoring yourself and you're nurturing yourself. And if you put essential oils and salt in there, it just helps to work on another level, of pulling toxins out while you're having some of this downtime and being able to restore some of your energy.
Definitely. Yeah. Connecting with any of the elements of earth, water, fire, air, ether is so healing because it connects us back. It releases all that negative energy and really just connects us back to our inner self. So I love baths too.
It's so important. So I'm going to take a second now. It's charity shout out time. We're a little bit late on our time, but I didn't want to interrupt. And your charity is the Center for Spiritual Awareness. So let's talk about that Center for Spiritual Awareness. Where is it? Why do you want people to know about it and support?
Yeah, so there's a lot of locations of the Center for Spiritual Awareness. There's one here in California that I like to go to. And it is why it's so important to me is one of my first and current Ayurvedic and Vedic astrology teachers, Dr. Ryan Strong. He is an ordained minister there, and his teacher, Mr. Roy G. Davis, who was one of the last living disciples of Yogananda. He was a huge spiritual master in the yoga community. He was also a huge influence on this organization. So they lead meditations, and it's just a really great it's just a really great center that really helps to foster that spirituality and coming home to yourself. And I love what they do. And I really look up to my teacher, so I love supporting him in any way.
Okay. And we are going to put the link up where you can find the Center for Spiritual Awareness, but check to see if there's one in your backyard. It might be something you'd be interested in touching into. So, okay. Thank you for that. So we've got a little bit of time left. What haven't I asked you that you feel is important to share with the audience?
I think that, I love to talk about like the healing work and the wounds and getting in there and, really clearing out all of that old stuff. But it also is just being in the joy and having fun with it. I think that a lot of times with spirituality, it is so important because I think, especially in this world, we can bypass a lot of it and just want to go straight to the joy and straight to the fun spirituality things. But sometimes we can get lost in that underworld of constantly ripping apart ourselves and not just experiencing like how enjoyable this life really is. So I guess if there's something that I could really leave everyone with is find your joy again. What sparks your light? What makes you come alive? And what nourishes you? So nourishment can come from food for sure, but there's so many other things that really bring us alive. And I think that in our world, it can also feel intimidating to think of what is my passion and what is my sole purpose in this world. But sole purpose doesn't just come from your career and that one thing that you do every day. It can certainly play a part into it, but sole purpose is waking up in the morning and feeling incredible and loving everything about your day, from the people that you see, from your morning routine to your nighttime routine to the in-between moments in your day. That is living a life with sole purpose of intentionality. And it's really just starting simple of what makes you curious. What have you been curious about? Have you been curious about taking a yoga class? Have you been curious about trying acupuncture? Have you been curious about changing up your diet? And that voice, that stronger voice, which maybe the ego at this time may be telling you, oh, you're not going to be able to do that, or you're not strong enough to go on that type of diet, or whatever it is. Listen to that voice within you, because it's intelligent and it's telling you to go towards your intuition, to go toward those inclinations. And that's going to open up your path to joy, is just following those curiosities. And another great way to do this is just by tuning into your creativity. Again, like I said, we all have creative energy. So whether you think of yourself as an artist or not, you do. Something that's been so healing to me that I've gotten way more into this year is just creating art. So creating poems, drawing. I just got crepas, which are these oil pastels that I'm so excited to dive into, and just to create like abstract. I mean, I'm not an artist by any means. Like, I'm just creating abstract things here, but just creating something helps to bolster that creative energy, and that's going to spark that curiosity, which is going to help you follow your soul's purpose. So if there's anything you could take away, just start with those little inklings and those curiosities, and I promise that'll pave your way.
I love that. And there are creative things in writing a story, even if it's your life story. You can write it as it was, or you can write it the way you'd like to see it, like your own very own fairy tale. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a fairy tale.
Yeah.
I think that is really powerful. Baking or cooking, there's so many creativities in things that you don't even think there's creativity in, but there are. Making a beautiful meal or decorating a cookie or a cake, and when you do it from scratch, you have such a sense of achievement.
Yes.
And I think people really lack the sense of achievement in the small things, and appreciating those small things, which then boister the feminine energy, because it is part of creating, and appreciating, I believe, is a piece of that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a huge point, that with the wounded feminine, it can seem like it's never enough and that you're constantly having to move on to the next achievement. But those little wins is exactly what is like the compost for the beautiful flower that you're about to bloom into. So I love doing that as well. I sometimes if I'm feeling like I'm disconnected from that loving energy within myself, I write myself a morning love letter, and I love doing that, of everything I'm proud of, everything that I'm grateful for. And it honors the divine feminine in such a beautiful way.
Oh my God, I love the idea of writing a daily love letter to yourself.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Because we need to give grace to ourselves. We need to honor ourselves. We need to be able to acknowledge the beauty that we have. And if you hear anybody's words in your head saying, no, you're not beautiful, or you're stupid, or no, delete that, because that has no place in our thought process, in my opinion.
Definitely.
So, okay. Was there anything more that you'd want to talk about to do to tap into your feminine that we haven't addressed yet? I know there's so much in this topic, and there's so many layers.
Yeah. So what I love doing for women to connect to their feminine energy is by understanding the cycles of the moon with new and full moon ceremonies, because it's super important that we know what's happening astrologically, because that affects us, especially if we identify as highly sensitive beings, which you're listening, I'm sure you are. And so I love doing those monthly so that women can tap into that. And I also, in my Divine Feminine Healers Academy, I teach women how to strengthen their intuition, and you can get certified as an Ayurvedic health coach and Reiki master, so that you can really harness these intuitive gifts. Because so often what I see with women is that they feel they're denying that they even have these gifts, that they are even intuitive beings. And really, these ancient sciences help you to remember of all the power that you really have. And that certification gives you that validation and gives you that empowerment that, yes, this is what I achieved, and this is what I can bring to the world.
Is this a study on your own academy, or do you have specific dates where you might start a basic class, and then there's more advanced, you go through a series and then there's more advanced? How is it structured, your academy?
So the academy is 6 months, and we meet, it starts in June, and each month we go through a different chakra, we go through a different energy center, and you are going to learn all the basics of how to Ayurvedic fundamentals. So first, the reason how we can step into a healer is how to heal ourselves. So you're going to learn how to heal your mind, your body, and your soul, like dramatically transform your life, not just your physical imbalances, but your relationships are going to change. Your soul purpose might change. You might change locations, all this inner work. And we also do this through yoga, kundalini, and meditation, and getting Reiki certified. So we can open up your intuitive gifts. And then alongside, you are also going to learn how to hold space for others and step into a successful healer. Now, this doesn't have to be, if you are only wanting to self-heal, this program is more than enough for you to self-heal. However, I find that usually when women start to self-heal, they want to become healers. So you're also going to learn the ins and outs of how to trust your intuitive gifts wholeheartedly, like not deny the voice of your intuition one bit. It's going to be an unshakable connection that you have, and be able to share your soul's purpose with the world. We all have unique gifts, and it's all about just finding what is authentic to us and then being able to confidently express that to others.
Perfect. And you can find this at, your website is Angelica?
roseneri.com.
Roseneri.com. Okay. So please check out AngelicaRoseneri.com, all one word. Check about the Academy, what it offers, when it starts. If you have any questions, there's a contact page, I'm assuming, on your website?
Yes. So you can find out more about it and you can apply online.
Wonderful. Angelica, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you,
I
Marla.
love the information. It's so powerful. And I'm truly hoping that what you shared will ignite the passion for the women and men who are listening to this. That as Mother's Day is this Sunday, the focus was to hoist up the women and tell them what feminine energy was about and how to get it back, because so many of us, and I'm one of those who at one point in my life, for a very long time, it was a very long point, lived in my masculine. And then when I finally started balancing out the masculine and feminine and allowing the feminine to come in and be a part of my life, the shift was so dramatic. And I know that if it works for me and it worked for you, it'll work for many.
Definitely.
So, thank you. So all your information is going to be in our blog. Again, AngelicaRoseneri.com. Reach out to Angelica if you have any questions. Check out this amazing academy and see how you can start working on welcoming your feminine back to you. So
thank you so much, Marla, for having me. It was such a beautiful conversation, and I love connecting with like-minded women who can we just understand these topics, and we know them and we live them and we embody them.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you being on the show, because this was such a rich conversation with so many layers that were addressed with it. And I have to say, I'm sorry Nicole was not able to make the show today because she was promoted. She's on the, title page, but in the future we'll have her back. But so grateful for you. I want to say thank you to Bridget for all you do for me. My right arm, my left arm, I don't even know. I have no words to say how grateful I am for you and all you do for me. I want to thank you, the listening audience, for taking time out of your day, out of your life to be a part of this show, because this show is created with you in mind to bring to you concepts, ideas, healers that can help you in your life's path. Open it up for you, help you with your flow, whatever it might be that you feel you need. I'm hoping to address all of those issues here on Guided Spirit Conversations. As I leave you, I first want to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers, mother figures that are out there, because we need your mother energy. We need your divine feminine to help bring this world back into balance. So thank you and have a beautiful Mother's Day. And as I leave you, as always, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. Grateful that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. Because as I always say, not only am I the teacher, but I'm your student. And not only are you my student, you are my teacher. So thank you for that. And if you haven't heard these words today, let me say them to you now. I love you. If you have heard them, well, you just had another layer of love sent to you. And if you haven't, no, you are never alone. You are loved. You are loved by me. You are loved by many, many on the other side of the veil who are there to serve you, protect you, guide you. Just be open to how they bring the information to you. And if you need something, ask, and ask out loud, because they don't have the free will to just to intervene on their own. So for them to conspire on your behalf, reach out to your spirit guides, your guardians, your angels, archangels, and ask for what you need. So until next week, stay well, stay healthy, and enjoy. And happy spring. Take care.